do the other two things first. Again, just trying to be conscious of the commissioner and the director's time.
No problem here. Thank you, Alderman.
Okay.
You may begin.
Okay. We're going to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Today is October the 5th. It's 1 o'clock, maybe about 4 minutes after 1. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page.
Present.
Chair Vaccaro.
Present.
You have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, 6 present. We have a quorum. We'll look for the approval, make a motion of approval of the minutes from the September 27th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page.
Aye.
Chair Vaccaro.
Aye.
7 aye votes.
Okay. So we're gonna go right to the public safety. We're gonna move down the list a little bit. We're gonna go to item number 1, a complete discussion. We're gonna discuss the Prop S. And for that, we're gonna need Dr. Dan Isom and Alderwoman Boyd, since you're heading up the subcommittee and you're working directly with this. At this point, I'm just going to let you leave your mic open, and I would say if anybody has questions on how Prop S and how we're going to go about doing this, just raise your hand. If there's a bunch of questions, we'll go down the list. Dr. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and let you start it, and then I'm sure Alderwoman Boyd has questions. Oh, your mic's, I'm sorry, your mic's not there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you letting the Public Safety Department come on and recommend some changes to the Prop S request for proposals. Also on with me is Carletta. She is the fiscal manager for the Department of Public Safety. And then Will Pinckney is also on. He is the new director of the Office of Violence Prevention. As you all know, with the ARPA funding, there were monies appropriated for community violence intervention. And so the Department of Public Safety is trying to move all of these crime prevention grants under the Office of Violence Prevention. And so going forward, will be overseeing the Prop S grant. So as he's taken on this role, and Carletta has also dug into the RFP and also, our subsequent management of the grant process once it's turned over to us. There were a couple of things that we thought would strengthen not only the RFP, but also the delivery of services once a grant is submitted. So a couple of things that, and we do believe that some of these things that we are doing on our end when we administer the program should be reflected in the RFP. So that's the spirit in which we are bringing this forward for some recommendations for modifications for approval. The first is that we have with the City Council's office drafted interest document that we would have all participants, or at least people who would receive a grant, to fill out. Of course, they would fill that out as a part of the application process. So we do think that that should be in the RFP, so we don't spring it on people after the fact. And then also, as we get in invoices, we find that we don't have really any guidance on how the monies should be spent on these grants. It is somewhat open-ended in the RFP and also in the rules. And so we're recommending that only 10% of the monies that are in this grant would go to non-programmatic expenses. That would mean that, administrative and overhead cost would only be 10% of the money granted. So the other 90% will be directly related to delivery of services. This is consistent with other granting agencies, especially the federal government, has somewhat strict guidance on what expenditures can be used for. And then finally, I will turn this over to Mr. Pinckney, Will Pinckney, to talk about maybe some, in general, more specific parameters about what is actually a youth violence prevention program, and when and how long, what target population we're looking at, and how long do these programs run, and are we funding existing programs or programs that are expanding to deliver services to this target population? So I don't know if, Will, you wanted to weigh in on that.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could I say something, please?
Well, that's what I was saying. You didn't need to raise your hand since you're chair and you're the chair of the subcommittee on this. And since
Right.
I'm not on the subcommittee and I know very little about what we're doing, that's why I said your mic is open to, in other words, you're the one that's going to end up having to put all this together. I'm listening. I'll be here to help, but no, your mic's open, so you don't have to ask. You can just jump in.
I didn't want to be rude. I'm very concerned because public safety, this is not the role of what you all are supposed to do. Your role is the administrative piece. If it was an issue, I'm just now seeing these documents. And since I have been dealing with this for quite a while, I think it's very disrespectful what you all are doing, because you are bringing something to this committee and I have not been informed of any of this. You went through somebody else to have me to ask the questions of me, but Dr. Isom or Mr. Pinckney or Corletta, nobody called me and said, we had concerns. We would like to sit down with you to go over this. And that's why I asked you all to come forth today, because I think this is very disrespectful what you all are doing. Per the ordinance, this is a Board of Aldermen's issue. And so you should have contacted the chair of public safety to find out who was the person or was supposed to be going over this, doing this. And so I'm not, and Mr. Clerk, it's not you, it's the two people that's speaking on this. And you all did not talk to me at all. You all came up with these suggestions. You never once said, Alderwoman, can we sit down with you to go over this to see if this we agreeing on? Can we bring it to the safety committee? And so I just think that is very disrespectful. And I don't know what Mr. Pickney feels that his expertise is in regards to what should be done with this. But I just think when the previous board years ago came up with this, they were looking at how to help these communities that had never been serviced in regards to public safety. And so I have been trying diligently to make sure we stay within the guidelines. And I know it was some things that happened that shouldn't have happened. And I brought it up to the chair and the vice chair at that time of the red flags. So we were working diligently to correct this, but not one of these people from public safety picked up the phone and called me and said, we had some questions, we wanted some concerns. The only concern I heard about was Dr. Isom. And I did address those concerns. I said, I don't have a problem with that. All this other stuff in here, I don't know nothing about this. And I think it's very disrespectful.
Well, Alderwoman Boyd, our intentions weren't to be disrespectful. And we did bring up our concerns to the chair of the Public Safety Division, and also the clerk to share with whoever needed to know what our concerns were. And I agree with you. Maybe we do need to clear out what is our role and our responsibility. If our responsibility is strictly to administer the program, then certainly, I guess we're not involved in the RFP process at all. We're not involved in the selection process. And so everything is done by the Board of Aldermen. And then once you all finish with the selection process, you hand over the awardees to us and we will administer the program. If that is the interpretation, I'm fine with that interpretation. But that doesn't seem to be the way it is working. It seems to be that we are not just administering the program, we are helping with the process of selecting the candidates. So maybe there needs to be some clarity on you all's part as to what is the role of the Public Safety Department. I don't think having these conversations in an open air public discussion where the community can be a part of it is disrespectful. That was not our intention. Our intention was to improve the delivery of the program. And so that's the spirit in which we have brought these issues to the chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Can I step in just for a second? So I just got these, in all honesty, just, almost just prior to the meeting from the clerk. But what I'm thinking is, why don't maybe if Alderwoman Boyd, maybe if you and Dr. Isom get together, and because I think there's some. I was just looking at these. I mean, just now looking at them, but there might be some room in there, to improve on what we're doing. I don't want to interfere with the subcommittee, but unless you feel otherwise, Alderwoman Boyd, maybe we should hold off. We do this again next week after you guys get a chance to sit down and look at some because Dr. Isom, you're right. The way it's written, the Board of Aldermen picks basically who they feel they want the money to go to and what the amounts are. Then it goes to an outside group. Last year was Incarnate Word. Then they rank them 1 through whatever. And I think some of the stuff does make sense if it's all going to, copiers for the office and whatnot, not getting out. I do think that's good to say only 10%. But Alderman Boyd, you're the vice chair. I'm not going to step on anybody's toes. Do you think you want to hold off and we redo this part next week after you have a chance to sit down and basically say what's good and what's not, because technically, she's right. Alderman Pickett and the public safety administer it. But if we can make it better, then I think we should be open to looking at everything. And again, I haven't sat on the subcommittee since day one. One of the things that we might want to look at too is, because the money that's not spent, we can spend it now, because if they don't spend it by the end of the year, it gets thrown back in. So we might even have a little more money, and then what we have stated. So Alderman Boyd, it's up to you. And we can go on from here, or we can hold off on this. You could sit down and basically pick out what you think's good, what you think's bad, come to an understanding.
I think we need to sit down and have a conversation. That's only respectful. And so I'm surprised that I'm just now seeing this. And it might have came earlier, but I don't know about nobody else. I don't just sit at my computer. So
Well,
I've been out in my community all morning. So
Well,
I would
I
prefer
would
we
say,
sit down and talk about it so
Yeah.
I can see what's going on.
Alderwoman Boyd, I did not request to meet with this panel to discuss this. This was the recommendation by the Board of Alderman clerk. I sent
By me.
information
That
to
was by
discuss.
me.
Yeah,
It was-
I
it
sent
was by me.
information to discuss this matter, and that wasn't the choice. The choice was to have this meeting. So this was not my choice to have this. So you're speaking to the wrong person. If you're
So my thing is, if I'm the chair of this subcommittee, I would like to have the respect to sit down with the people that's making recommendations, to talk to me and whoever else is on this subcommittee to see what is the issues and what do we need to be doing. I don't have a problem by strengthening it. I've always said we need to strengthen it, but I don't want it to be muddy waters and nobody knows who's on first. As Dr. Isom said, nobody knows who's on first or who on second. I want to know who's on first, who's on second, who's responsible, and what are we doing per the ordinance.
So what I would say, and I asked Dr. Isom to come to this, and also ask him to stay for the next one, which is a jail. And I'm glad that we did this, because at least now, because I'm not following all the pieces either. So I would ask Dr. Isom, if you and whoever you feel is appropriate, and Alderwoman Boyd as the chair of that subcommittee, why don't you guys get together in this next week? And what I'll do is the next public safety meeting that we call on Prop S, I'll wait until you tell me, yes, this is what how we're going forward. And then if we can have yourself and Dr. Isom come back in, and whoever you guys feel is appropriate. This way we can come out with a unified plan. And again, I did really just get these documents. And there's a timestamp. So I got them at 12:46 and the meeting started at 1. So, so it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. I'm glad that, that we came together so we know how to move forward. So if everybody's fine with that, I think we'll move off the Prop S, and then Dr. Isom, if yourself and Alderwoman Boyd. Yes, Alderwoman Howard, I'm sorry, you have your hand up.
As a member of the subcommittee, I feel as though this is sort of I don't understand. This RFP and this procedure has been out there forever. And then, at 1:45 today, we get a document that they want to change the whole thing around. I don't understand what's driving this, but it just seems to me there was plenty of time before now to have some input on this, rather than waiting till we're ready to approve it and put it out there for people. There are people that are waiting on this money.
Well,
And detaining it further, to me, just is sort of an ambush tactic. I don't understand why now and why so late. But that's all I have to say. I don't think the money, and Alderwoman Boyd, correct me, or Dr. Isom, the money doesn't even come available till next year. And we got an early start this year because we didn't want to run into, because myself, I'm the one that screwed it up like 10 years ago or whatever it was.
resolution in quick enough. And Alderwoman Boyd pointed it out and has made corrections, and she's starting it way early. And so this way we had time to maneuver through all these things. So, I mean, we have plenty of time between now and the end.
I understand that, but I think that when we're ready to approve it, we're sitting here, we went over it, and then all of a sudden, 15 minutes before we're ready to vote on it, we get this new information. It's just, to me,
Well,
but that's all I have to say. I'm not going to argue with you.
no, but we're not voting on anything today. We weren't voting. We already voted on it. You know, that we approved it. The next step is for the subcommittee to get together and send out the RFP. But Alderman Boyd, unless you feel strongly against it, I think maybe we wait, and if you guys get together and bring whoever on the subcommittee with you, and let's pick out the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then let's put together something that makes sense. And I think also we need to look at the money that hasn't been spent from the year prior.
But Mr. Chair, my question, are we discussing what will happen on the next RFP or the one we already approved? Because if we approved it, you telling me Will Pickett and Dr. Isom and Carlotta are making this saying, we're not doing that RFP, even though the Board of Aldermen approved it, and we're going to redo that RFP so we can send that one out, or are we working on one for next year?
No, I think that if we can improve on the one, we can always amend the RFP. If you choose, if you're saying you don't want to do that, tell me, we'll move forward and we won't worry about them. Then I just think that if we can improve on something, we should. But I certainly, like Dr. Isom said, if then we feel it's his role only to administer it, then we move on. Whatever. I'm just trying to,
We're going to meet. We already procrastinating on this whole process, and I'm telling you publicly, I think this is intentional.
Okay.
We're already procrastinating on this because it was my understanding.
We can move forward.
We're working on the next one, not this one.
We can move forward with your RFP, Madam Chair, and we will move forward just as you want it. We will not recommend anything. And so we'll move forward. So we can table it.
Thank you.
so, okay.
Susan, I just want to say one thing. First of all, my name is Wilfred Pinkney. I don't know why people keep mispronouncing my name. There still needs to be a discussion if we are the person who administers it. Having people get one set of directions in an RFP and another thing happen when the program is administered is you don't want to have conflicting messages. So we, like the Dr. Action said, we can move forward, but we do need, I think, to have a discussion about what administering it is in the eyes of the Board of Aldermen.
Again, I'm saying Wilford Pickney. We can have discussion to move forward. My question was, is this for this RFP or is it for the next RFP? That was my question.
I would imagine.
You're on mute, Dr. Isom.
It sounds like what you're suggesting is that we have no role in the RFP process. So if that's the case, then we'll just administer as you all dictate.
Okay.
My thoughts were, if there's ways to improve on something, we should improve. Alderwoman Davis, you have your hand up.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I was trying to be quiet, but you all hit a nerve. So I am very concerned about a number of things, but one thing I will not be concerned about is the facilitation of operations. That is not our role. We will not get too far into the processes. And I know that all your guidelines are already in place. We should probably stick to those and allow those departments that are in charge to handle most of those things that they've been handling in the past. We don't want to change that and confuse people. So if we need to just critique it some to make it be smoother, let's talk about that. Okay? But let's not talk about the Board of Aldermen getting too far into an area that we're not responsible for. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Well, and I think what Dr. Isom's talking about is tweaking the RFP, and what Alderman Boyd is saying, we already have one. Alderman Ryan, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman Picaro. I'm just getting some text from folks who just want to know the makeup of the subcommittee. I know that that was a public thing and one of the previous public safety meetings, but just for the sake of the public, if we could discuss who's on that again.
And it has to be, we learned this from 2 years ago, it has to be members of the Public Safety Committee, and Alderwoman Boyd is chairing it. So Alderwoman Boyd, who's on the subcommittee with you?
Alderwoman Carol Howard, Alderman Freeman, Alderman Brandon Bosley, myself, and I forgot the other person. It was one more person. Was it Alderman Page? It was one more person.
I thought that Alderwoman Tyus was going to help it.
Yeah, Alderwoman Tyus. Yeah, that's the other person. I knew it was another person.
So anybody that wants to be on the subcommittee should talk to Alderwoman Boyd. I don't interfere. If I'm understanding what Alderwoman Davis said, maybe there should be some critiquing. It's just whatever,
That's what I was asking. All I said was, are we focusing on this RFP or we focusing on the next RFP?
Well, it would be.
I'll ask for clarity on that. Two, I said, I don't have a problem with meeting with Dr. Isom to go over it, and I never got the answers.
No, so it's this one, the one that we're getting ready to send out. And what I'm saying is, if you say you're willing to want to meet, then another week, either way, isn't going to hurt anything. Alderwoman Howard, just go ahead and jump in. You have your hand up.
You know, on the current RFP, they're asking these be submitted by the 26th of October. And I think that's fair regarding the timeliness, so we can get them out to have them vetted. I think at this point, we'd be better off looking forward to the next RFP and tweaking that rather than, and then trying to change this now and maybe taking a week or two and then putting it out there and giving people just a week to complete it. To me, they should have at least a month. Now, I don't know if that date's flexible, but I'm talking to the chair of the committee, Alderwoman Boyd.
What our challenge was last year, Alderwoman Howard, and the years prior, we were, as Alderman, I'm saying Bosley, but I mean for Carl, we were running into when we would get the RFP out in August, it would take us to, we got them out in September, it would take us to January to even get things finalized because it was the process itself. And so that's why we kind of pushed it back earlier so we could get the process done, because it was just a dilemma trying to get the process out through the different departments to approve the contracts and that stuff. So that's why I asked the question, is that for this contract or is that for the next contract? I was under the impression it was for the next RFP. So that's why I asked Dr. Isom.
I would suggest that's probably a good way to go, because if we've got this pretty well solidified, rather than changing this at this time, I know, having been on this committee before, the work it takes and the work it entails to gather these up, go through them and just check to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And I've been with this since it was in the rudimentary phases of it. I think that, taking a look at the suggested additions to this RFP process after this one's out may be the way to go rather than trying to squeeze it in now and negotiate what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. But that's just my opinion, and I'll defer to you, Chairwoman Boyd.
Dr. Isom, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, we had two very, I think, major changes, but are minor and wouldn't require very much to change the RFP. One is a conflict of interest statement, meaning that there should be no contact amongst anybody with vendors or promises to any vendors during the selection process. I think that's very important for the integrity of the process. So that's one thing. And then the second, which I think is very important, is the amount of money, since we're supposed to administer this program, that will be going to non-programmatic expenses. That should be important to this board, because if someone's putting in an expense to pay their insurance for their building, is that appropriate? At this point in time, we have no guidance from your RFP or from this body as to whether or not that is appropriate or not, or a payment on a lease for a vehicle, or the CEO's pay, supplementing their pay or benefits. So I think those are two very important things for the delivery of this program that you all want for people. And I agree, we need to get it out, but I don't think that those two things will take much time and we can still meet the deadlines. Certainly there are other things we have concerns, and I expressed this to the board clerk that we could talk about later for the next RFP, but those two things, the conflict of interest and some guidance on how these monies should be spent, are important enough to make those adjustments now.
Now, what you just said, Dr. Isom, is the only thing I ever heard. All this other stuff, I didn't know anything about that. And I made it clear to the clerk, I didn't have a problem with that. I'm okay with that. I'm fine. But it's all the other stuff that you all put in, I didn't know anything about.
So let me just ask. So Alderwoman Boyd or Chairwoman Boyd. So are you wanting to change the RFP to include those two things? If you do, then we have to amend the RFP.
And I don't have a problem with that. I made that clear, and the clerk called me over a week ago about that. I'm like, I'm fine with that. That's fine. I said, but these other documents, I don't know anything about that.
So
So I'm getting from my subcommittee members, they want to go with the way it is with the RFP and work on the next one.
okay, well, okay. I mean, if that's what I'm not in that process, so I'm going to do whatever you want. I do think those are two really valid points, though. But I'm not. I never get involved in it, so I'm not going to get involved now. I just give you my fast opinion. I think those are two valid. If they're using it to buy a staff car for somebody or something like that, you know, I mean. So anyway, I'm out of it. I'm just whatever. You're the chair.
And so from dealing with non-for-profits and grants, from me having a non-for-profit years ago, I never heard of a non-for-profit. And if that happens, that is an issue. I never heard, it was always a challenge for non-for-profits to get salaries for their employees, items for their business, because that's not what those grants are for. Those grants are for programming. That's all those grants are supposed to do, is supply people monies to run programming. And so as a previous person that ran a non-for-profit, you automatically knew that was not what you're supposed to do. And so I don't have a problem saying you want to specify that don't go in there. I don't have a problem saying a conflict of interest. That's fine with me, because I'm all about transparency, because I don't want what happened before to us with that. But I'm still saying, I just think we've been holding on, fighting with this RFP for the longest. We've been actually working with this RFP before the administrator left, trying to get this RFP out. And people in the public safety office kept roadblocking us, kept stopping it. So I'm like Alderwoman Howard, it's already done, it's already made. Why aren't we moving forward and working on a new one?
Okay, well, I mean, it's your call. Alderman Bosley has his hand up, and Alderwoman Howard, your hand still up, but Alderman Bosley, did you want to chime in with us here?
Be heard. I don't know if my.
Sorry, we got you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I just, number one, I would just want to make it clear to the general public. It seems that everyone is just trying to do what it is that they can do within their capacity to make this better process for the individuals who are involved, been involved in the past, make it a more smoother process and a little bit more transparent as well. So I don't think that there is an argument, just for those who are watching. I don't think that that's what's happening right now, but there are differences in what it is that we believe should be happening within the process. So I'll say this because I think this is important to note. When we talk about the administrative costs, and we talk about the things that are needed for an administration to run and anything anti-violence, one of the problems that we're having with our police department right now is there are not enough individuals who are being paid enough to be able to.
We're on Prop S.
Oh, I know. This is a part of
Okay.
it.
Okay.
It's public safety. So police go hand in hand with events. They go hand in hand with the different things that our organizations that are out there that will be funding. Whenever these people go out here and have events, they do particular things that are supposed to impact the community, and we're looking at anti-violence in general. There is some point in time where there has to be law enforcement included in this thing. So, with those things being said, I want to point out the importance of administration. These organizations that are working in violent areas, right? The reason you can go to the county and get paid $18,000 more in other places that don't spend as much capital on violence is because there's not as much violence going on in those areas. When you come to areas like ours, when you come to the north side of St. Louis, west side, places like that, it does take more officers. It does take more resources. And one of the reasons that we don't tell and do particular things that would liberate us within our communities is because those resources aren't generally always available. You can see a homicide and somebody comes shoot your house up and saying something about it. Those things all come down to what, from my understanding and everything that we've been going through, is there's nobody to administer the programs that we get out here and try to put money into to say that these programs are supposed to be able to help the community. That's any program that we got going on within the city right now, whether it's us hiring individuals, whether it's the department that's supposed to hire people. They say themselves they're short 4 and 5 people. Administration is extremely important to operation. And most of the people who are living in our communities don't have administrative costs. They are out there as single parent organizations doing the best that they can to survive while doing what it is that they can to be effective with the resources that they have. A lot of people pull money out of their pocket for administrative costs and administering the programs that they believe would be able to help the communities that they live in. So I think reducing the amount of administration would not even being at a point where we have exhausted all of the program monies that we administer, right? We still have $13,000 to $20,000, sometimes $30,000, more than that left over every single time we administer these programs. That's not because the program lacks some sort of, I would say, entrance from the people, or we're not going out here and advertising it the best that we can. It's because these organizations who we awarded the funding to, sometimes they have to give that money back because they do not have the capacity to administer these resources. They do not have the capacity. Like right now, once again, the city is having a hard time hiring people. And that's whether you're administration or you're out here doing the actual programs that are supposed to be administered. Things are difficult right now. So when we look at removing these two things that look like they would be potential conflicts for our city based on how other programs around the nation could potentially have been administered, where people overutilize an administrative cost to administer programs that don't cost that much. You got people making $100,000 a year and they only got awarded $300,000. That is not what we've seen. We only have $1 million. This is less than $2 million to administer. So we don't have folks out here buying cars that they are not utilizing for the resources that they put in and say that they particularly need this vehicle to administer the resources for the program that exists. You know, for one of the programs I have, Camp Sunsplash at Fairgrounds Park, every single year, one of our former aldermen is out there. She lives in the community. Ms. Bailey, she's there on a regular basis administering a summer program for, you know, a good 30 to 40, 50 children throughout the community. She, at some point in time, will need some sort of a bus and transportation to be able to pick up some of those children who don't have access to get to the park because their parents don't have vehicles. Now, these things are all a part of creating violence prevention. One of the problems within our community is you can't get from College Hill to St. Louis Place without somebody seeing you and knowing that you from College Hill. And you got to walk through the JVL. You got to walk through a certain block where somebody notices and you get yourself shot up just for walking down the street and being part of a certain neighborhood. All of these things are an important part of administration. The people who administer these programs know the community. You know, it's not a conflict of interest for us as well, because I don't think there'll never be an alderman out here who's out here advocating for a community organization who does not know that community organization. Why would we go out here and say these people can save lives if we haven't seen them do it without money? You know, that puts something on our head as a community. It's difficult as hell for us, and it's real. When we go out here and we out here at 2 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night, it's difficult to not get shot in your face out here. And then be talking about you want the police, you want police presence. These same people that shoot and kill people will shoot and kill us if they don't see us out here advocating for the right thing and advocating for those people whom they believe in. These organizations that are grassroots in these communities that are taking our people off the streets and administering the treatment that they need mentally, the love that they need physically, those things that we are saying we could do much more if we had these resources, these dollars. Those individuals are the ones that we put our trust in when we say, I've seen you do the work. And you say you need, what, 20,000 to do it better? Hey, man, we're going to go to PS, public safety, and we got a little grant. It ain't a lot, but what can you do with this $20,000? Like Mission STL. I know these people. You know, I'm not involved in that organization. I don't get a dime from them, but I have, since I've been an alderman, I've walked in that facility, I've gotten to know them. So the fact that I'm not supposed to have conversation with them when they come to a brand new program. We got 30 or 40 fathers every single month that we are putting through a program. Sorry, every 3 months that we putting through programs. They out here getting jobs, fixing on houses, doing great things. So I'm not supposed to listen to them when they say we can ramp this up. If we had an extra $20,000 this year, no contact, that's not fair. That's not fair for you to reach out to your alderman and the individual who's supposed to be able to help you along your journey and help go out and grab dollars and find those dollars, just like a state representative or a congressman or a senator. They do the exact same thing. If we feel like these people can fill a void within our communities and they're within the guidelines of what Prop S is and what it is these monies are supposed to be administered for, it would behoove us to not go out here and not talk to the community organizations that's doing the work and look and see what they're doing and physically be out there with them and get to know them and know that they're going to represent us the right way when we go out here and advocate for them to get the dollars to go out here and do the services that the city is saying we can't render. We need organizations to help us. So with all that being said, I'm not saying that Dr. Eisen, I know your heart is in the right place. You are looking to ensure that these dollars are being spent correctly and things are not being made off in a way where they're not being looked at and things are just going off only the alderman. But just truth is, right? The aldermen are the representatives for the thousands of people within the city of St. Louis, and those areas that have been hit the hardest and continue to be hit hardest with violence. Those areas are completely statistically and analytically looked at every day. You can go look at them. So we're supposed to represent those people who are calling us. People don't call us only to say you did a good job. I mean, yeah, I would say out of 100 calls, you maybe get one that say that. People call you when they got a problem, when they have an issue and they need you to help solve it. So we're supposed to be those individuals who know who are helping solve those issues within the community. So we need to know who these people are. We need to have interaction with them. And I think that's something that should not be preventative in any board bill, in any ordinance that says we cannot have a relationship with the people who are out here building relationships in the community to help bridge the gap between community, government, and policing. That's extremely important. And I know what you are saying, and it's important for us to have transparency at the same time. So if there's a way we can make that process more transparent, I believe that would possibly be the best language. But with us removing that in general and saying that we should not have a relationship, conversation, all these different things with these organizations, I think that would put us in a position where you got individuals like we got now coming from Joplin and everywhere else, dropping in saying, I can solve violence in your city. And then the city rejecting those people saying, I don't know you. You never been to my hood. If you be in these hoods, you can't just walk down the street just because you got $1 and think that somebody gonna care that you gave them $1 tomorrow. It don't work like that. These people care about who they see every day, who it is that they know when they don't have $1, this person to give you milk out their refrigerator and help feed you if you got the cereal in a bowl. That is what is needed within our city. And I think the people who are representing these neighborhoods, we're the individuals, we're like the conduit to the government. We are the piece of the government. The people are saying, you got to go back and tell the government officials what we're doing out here. So, with that being said, I don't think those two things fit into what this initial process was about. Yeah, it always needs to be done better, but removing the administrative costs, our people need administrative costs. These people, have regular jobs. And after they get off that regular job, they have other individuals that are trying to work with them to bring an organization to life when they have no money and they have a mission.
Yeah. Well, Alderman Bosby, I will say that I did kind of misspeak there. The conflict of interest doesn't suggest that you can't speak to people, but you disclose that at least the vendor will disclose who they've spoken to, because I do think that is important. If you are speaking to someone and that body is making a decision on who gets funding, that is something that should be disclosed for people to know. And then the secondarily thing that I say is that since I am the person administering and approving the checks that go out to these organizations, I think that there should be some parameters around what is programmatic expenses. I'm administering it. So there needs to be a conversation about where and how those monies can be spent. Certainly a car could be programmatic related. If you are driving out to young people and giving services to young people with that car, but there may be instances where that car is not programmatically related. And so having that specifically in the RFP and contract for the person who is administering the program, I think is very important. And when it was approved, I wasn't able to give that insight into it. And so I'm coming to the body to make these suggestions.
And so if you go back, and I'm not going to name all their people or whatever, but if you go back long before you were an alderman and slightly before I was an alderman, there was some issues, I believe, is why the money never went out the first couple of years, because they were trying to steer it to family members. So, I mean, I do think we really need to be cautious. Like, I don't have anybody that I know of that runs a non-for-profit, but certainly if my cousin or my brother, or, I think that we should disclose that. If I'm sending this and it's to my brother, Billy Bob, this organization, I do think, given, everything that's going on, that I understand what the angle they're coming from. But anyway, what I think I want to do is, since this really, we're trying to decide.
Alderwoman Davis had her hand up.
I don't see her anymore.
Yeah, she's on there.
Okay, now I see her and her hand. Yes, Alderwoman Davis.
I just wanted to add, it's very simple to add something to the RFP, because we should use the same guidelines as we use under HUD with the CDA funds, as far as how those funds can be spent. And it's very specific, it's very clear, and it wouldn't be confusing to anyone, because the funds are not supposed to be spent in a certain way. And I think that we should follow the same pattern for all funds that are spent on behalf of the city of St. Louis. And the HUD guidelines make it very clear. And that's already documented. Most people who have ever applied for any funds know that. And it's easy to insert it in the RFP. And when we talk about conflict of interest, one of the things that really bothered me in the last round, or maybe it was the round before, I'm not sure, but we as aldermen cannot go out and talk to entities and promote entities and suggest and require that entities that had either been rejected and or given less funds than they believe they should have received, have them come back to the committee, and then we reevaluate the evaluations and the determinations that had already been made. To me, that's going outside of our responsibilities, and it's not fair to all others who have applied and
Went through the
adhered
process.
to the regulations and process. Okay.
So when we get that, it's ranked 1 through 20. We don't go 1 through 20. We may go 1, 2, 3, 12, 15. We don't go down that line because as a group, I don't know. I just know we've never gone straight down. You know, Incarnate Word sends us a list, they rank them, but we don't actually follow that.
I have no problems with that. What I'm talking about is after the final decisions are made.
Right.
Oh, coming back,
People
sure,
are-
no, I understand.
Yeah, people are coming back, getting a second chance, and also making certain assertions,
Right.
and and add to it, haven't even spent the money from that previous year or the year before.
Well,
Right.
So, you know,
And that's what
we
I
make it
brought
more
up.
complicated.
Right.
Thank you.
And I
We
brought
need to
that
follow
up.
our own process and procedures,
Right.
first
There
of
you
all.
go. Right.
So
And I brought that up when we did. I said we are walking in some shady grounds. And so I felt that as if an organization that's in my community, I dismissed myself. I wouldn't even vote on it because I wanted to be transparent. And I understand what Dr. Isom is saying. So I
Right.
don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with saying, okay, this is Joe Blow organization. They're in my community,
Right.
and I'm not voting on this because
Right.
then that's showing I'm not swaying nobody's choices. But when it came up and we had already made the final vote, and then it came back and they added somebody, I made it very clear to the chair and said, I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that. So again, I'm repeating myself. I don't have a problem with the two that you said. I don't have a problem because as long as I've been dealing with non-for-profits, it was always a struggle to get money for salaries, for the administrative stuff. And so you always had to look for other grants to get that. But when it was programs, that's what you had to spend that money on. So I don't have a problem with that.
Well, can I ask one question to Dr. Isom? And Dr. Isom, the one thing I would say is where Alderman Boyd says if it's in her neighborhood, she wouldn't vote for it. I would disagree with that. The conflict I would say is if someone she's related to, because if we do it that way, unfortunately, a lot of these organizations are in disenfranchised neighborhoods. And you're taking out those aldermen saying, well, if those people are, it's in your neighborhood, you can't. I would disagree. I think you should advocate for groups that are in your neighborhood. You know, one of the reasons I always step aside is because I don't know what the different groups do in the different neighborhoods. I would think the conflict would just simply state if you have a personal relation in an organization. I think that would clarify, because I do think that, because again, I think you're going to find that these organizations are in areas of the city that are disenfranchised. I don't have one in my neighborhood. So I would hope that, Alderman Bosley and Alderwoman Boyd and Alderman Page, if he has something like that, or I do know the 22nd ward, I believe, has something. I would hope that they would come forward and advocate and say, yes, I'm very familiar with this group. It's a group that does this and in the past, we haven't brought the groups in, and maybe we should do that. But I would say, you know, Alderwoman Davis to shake her head no, but I would say that if we're going to state a conflict, it should just only be if you have a relative that serves or works in that organization. I think that would be a true conflict. I think other than that, I would I would hope that if this is something, an organization in someone's neighborhood that they're familiar with, that they would want to advocate. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm proposing is something that the vendor would have to sign. It's up to every alderperson to decide whether or not they feel that they should vote on a matter or not. And I'm not even suggesting that if they do have contact that they shouldn't vote. But I think the main thing is that the vendor discloses what contact that they have had. So, you know, we have a fully transparent process. And that's added to the packet when you all make your decisions.
Okay. Alderwoman Boyd, again, I'm stepping in where I shouldn't be, so
Yeah,
you decide where we're going.
yeah. Like I said, the two he recommended, I didn't have a problem with. The other ones, I said that we need to look at that for the next RFP.
So are you saying that that you're proposing that we put in those two things into this current RFP?
Right.
And Alderwoman Davis says it's just not a very hard thing to do. Alderwoman Howard, your hand's up, and then I think we'll try and decide.
I think most everybody agrees to this. Do we need to vote on this before we move forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Now, is it just the subcommittee needs to vote on it or the full committee?
I think the whole committee, the members that are here would have to vote to change the RFP because we're the ones that vote on the RFP.
Okay.
So are you making
I make a motion that we move to accept the two suggestions about the conflict of interest and money being spent only for direct services to children or the population they're serving.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a second on the motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley,
No.
Alderman Odenberg,
Aye.
Alderman Orion,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderman Page,
Aye.
Chair Vaquero.
Aye.
I have seven.
Seven
Aye.
ayes, one no. The ayes have it. So we're going to change the RFP to include those two things. So Alderwoman Boyd, if you could work with getting those two
I have
changes.
a problem with working with Dr. Isom. I already said that.
Oh, no, well, no, I would ask that you would work with Alderwoman Davis, who said it's pretty easy to go ahead or work with the clerk. We've already know what we're going to do. So just work with the clerk to when we send the RFP out, that we have those two things, that we include that, okay?
And I still need to meet with him before for what the next RFP. So
Right,
whoever
please.
comes behind me, I want things in order.
Please, and Dr. Axon, please, yes.
Yeah.
Get with Alderwoman Boyd and Alderwoman Howard, your hand up and down.
Yeah, so we are going to make these amendments and move the RFP forward.
Right, that's what we're gonna do, yes. We already proved that.
We're good to go. Okay.
We're good to go. Unless
I
somebody
think
has,
we need to get it out since it's only less than 4 weeks to get it back in, so.
oh, no,
Okay, we're good.
it's done. I just asking Alderman Boyd work with the clerk or whoever, the attorney for the board, whoever, to make sure when the RFP goes out, it has those couple changes. We voted on it, we've approved it. So we're gonna, unless somebody really has an issue, we're gonna move on to the jail. Does anyone have anything else on Prop S? And anyway, thank you. And it was I think it was a good spirited discussion. I think that, anyway, so we're gonna move on to the jails, which actually, I have, certainly questions and concerns, and Commissioner Abdullah and Dr. Isom, thank you all for coming on the jail. One of my concerns is the city's attorneys saying that the oversight committee, and I'll go through my two or three concerns, and then I'll let you address them all at one time rather than. So my concerns are the oversight committee, 6 people dying in the jail. That is a very big concern as to whether it's suicide or whatever, however they're dying. That's, I mean, when you get down to the percentages, that's a lot of people dying in a small place. My understanding, I was opposed to closing the workhouse. I'm still opposed to closing it. I believe that we've overcrowded CJC across the street. And I believe that now they're locked in their cells for 23 hours a day and only out for an hour. And so these are all my concerns. And however, whoever wants to address them is one, why do we feel people are dying? If drugs are getting in there, how are they getting in there? The second thing, and these are questions that people have asked me, just the other thing is, are we overcrowded? I know that 2 weeks ago we were told that the police said, don't send us any more people. We can't fit anybody. Send them to North Patrol, but you can't bring them here because we got too many people. So the overcrowding, the people dying, and the time spent in a cell. Those are my 3 concerns. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, not only media, but families are calling me, telling me that they feel that that there's big issues there and there's abuse. And so either Dr. Isom or director.
Yeah, I'll just open up and then I'll let the director go into the details. Certainly we are upset and concerned about the number of deaths that have happened in the jail. And in particular, that we don't have the oversight board at this time who could really weigh in independently and be that body that would give both you, Chairman, and others clarity that there's an independent investigation. But unfortunately, there has been a injunction put on the entire board bill that was approved by the Board of Aldermen. And so I know the legal division has asked that that be modified to separate the oversight of the jail function from that stay, but that did not happen. So it's the legal opinion that all of it has a stay at this point in time. So that is unfortunate because we would have that independent body that would be in there. I will turn it over to the commissioner to go through the process of intaking people, what's done, and some specifics about the deaths that have happened.
Good afternoon. I touch on the when people are brought in from the streets into the facility, we do everything possible medical wise to determine their state, get prescriptions and what have you. So there's no really singular reason for the deaths. And people there's been gossip, but there's no confirmation that there's one singular reason for it. Majority of them have had pre-existing conditions. We had no control over that. So with that, when people are brought in, they're looked at by medical extent, not in a real extensive manner, but they take vitals, they do things to determine what needs to be done. And within a 14-day period, then they're looked at and examined once they stay inside the facility. So, and we can get a little bit better take on their medical situation. Like I said, some of the people that have come in and have passed away, it had nothing, it was something that even if they were at home, it wouldn't have been detected. So I understand the public's, want to know, but, only a person coming in can tell me what's wrong with their body. So it was unbeknownst to us as a medical team, the medical team that's here. So when they come in, they're looked at, and like I said, within 14 days. And then, of course, we have various avenues where people that are brought into the facility where they can report their illnesses, whether it be via the officer, the tablets. It's a whole slew of ways that they can communicate that something is wrong. So I can't tell you why or what, but I can tell you that we're doing our best to detect things when they come in. As far as overcrowding, we're not overcrowded. It's not overcrowded. I can't give an answer for that. You're muted. I can't hear.
Why were they sending people to North Patrol to the holdover, saying that there was no room in the jail in CJC?
That did come from CJC, so I'm not sure.
Dr. Isom, was that something the police just dreamt up, or, I mean, can someone clarify that for me?
Yeah, I think at the time, and maybe it was a disturbance that was happening at the jail, and there was a temporary hold on moving people down because the corrections was trying to manage a situation there. And so while you're trying to manage your situation, you don't want to bring more people down. So that's my understanding of what was going on. It didn't have to do with overcrowding.
Okay, and then Commissioner, or Director, Commissioner, I'm sorry. So you say within 14 days. So in my case, I'm diabetic. Got high blood pressure, you name it, I got it. I wake up in the morning and literally, I think I take about 10 pills to start my day and about 4 or 5 to end my day. If I had to wait 14 days, I would be dead. I mean, my diabetes alone, if I'm not treating it on day one, I can't wait 14 days for an assessment. And you're saying it's 14 days for someone to be assessed?
No, I'm saying when they come in, they're assessed to make sure that we're meeting or exceeding their needs. And then within 14 days, they have an extensive one-on-one with the provider, with our medical folk. So what they do is when they come in into the facility and you say, hey, I'm insulin dependent, we take the pharmacy information, we take the doctor information, and we send that out and we verify it. Because you can tell me you're on insulin and you get it from CVS or Walgreens or Costco or wherever. But if it can't be validated, I can't really truly say that. So we have to verify that, and that's the process that it goes through. And so once that's determined, we'll do things, take vitals, take whatever to verify, to maintain your insulin, make sure if you are insulin dependent, that we do what it takes to maintain until that information comes back. Usually it's fairly quick if you in fact have a condition. So that's how that works initially. So that's what we do initially.
For me, 1 day would be too long. I mean, keep in mind, I've had open heart surgery. I take pills for my heart. I mean, all these pills that I take, and I would hope never to end up there, but I'm just saying, plus, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like the process to make sure that the people that we have housed there, that they're getting proper medical care. I mean, 14 days, and I mean, I just get concerned and again, people that have called me that um, you know, and I'm getting texts at the same time, so I'm getting text questions like, what is the current population, stuff like that. But we can get to that in a minute. That 14 days seems long. So let's just say someone comes in that has a drug addiction, whether they're addicted to heroin or something or whatever. Those folks generally need, I know you can't give them heroin in jail, but they need to be on like a program that, they don't come crashing down, I mean, how are we addressing those people? Because maybe are those the ones that are dying on us, or, I mean, are they all committing suicide? I mean, what's, and I'm asking because people keep asking me, and I wish that the citizens group could go in there, because my concerns is more about how do we keep these riots and disturbances down. When you're starting to see things get stirred up, it's a concern. And then I also am very concerned, maybe you could tell me, how are these people dying? The medical examiner must have some idea.
Well, the ones that we have been able to confirm, it was an undetected medical condition. There's no way, even if they would have been at home, that it would have happened the same way. You start feeling real ill, you contact somebody, they call EMS, they come pick you up, you get to the hospital, they're doing things to revive you, and they find out it's an embolism or something that you wouldn't even detect normally. So
none of them were a suicide. I was told one was a suicide.
And that's something you ask the medical profession. I've been in corrections for over 30 years. It takes you probably about 3 minutes to hang yourself.
Well, no.
Right? So, or whatever, I'm just saying, committing suicide is not that's not something, you can do it in a short amount of time. So I can't really account for somebody that wants to do self-harm, but what we do is we make every effort to be able to detect that when their initial stages coming into the facility. That's why we have medical right there. They address the detoxes. We identify them by the uniform we put them on. We have a medical assisted training program that our medical department has implemented. And we're able to identify those people and address them accordingly. And we have a relationship with the health department if in fact we need them to come over and assist us. So with any of the detox situations.
Okay, out of I'm sorry, doctor, just let me just one more, and then I promise I'll shut up after this.
Oh, no, I just wanted to clarify what you were asking. We believe that, I think from the medical examiner, 3 are pre-existing conditions. We believe 2, even though this has not been verified by the medical examiner, 2 were suspected overdoses, and then 1 is a suspected suicide. So 3 pre-existing medical conditions, 2 suspected overdose, and 1 is a suspected suicide.
And you guys are doing a good job. I'm not blaming you for the people dying. I'm just trying to get answers to the questions that I'm being asked.
No, I just wanted to give you that straight answer so you'd have that.
No, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate that. Commissioner, out of the 6 people that died, okay, 3 committed suicide. You said that's fast. We don't know. It's whatever. And no, I'm sorry. It was, I forget the number on suicide, but 3 were the natural. Did they reach out? Was an ambulance called? I know if I'm having problems. So an ambulance was called while they were still alive, not after they were dead.
That's correct.
Okay, so in these cases where it was natural, that they actually went to the hospital and died at the hospital and didn't die in the facility.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So I think I probably rambled on. I'm hoping that we can get the oversight group in there soon. And it is good to know that they died in the hospital. If this is true, then that's good to know. And I agree. The suicide that happens quick, and I guess you don't really know. Wait a minute. So I keep getting texts for questions. Let's see what the next question is here. Can I ask about the 2 overdoses? What drugs were detected in them? So, and how did the drugs get in the facility? I sort of think I know how drugs get in there, I think, but because I think I've asked that before, but maybe if you could address those 2 things, we'll be able to find out what the overdose was from, and how do you think that could have gotten in there? Those, if you have answers to either one of those, Dr. Isom or Commissioner.
We're not sure as of yet. It's still under investigation. We're waiting on all kind of screens to come back. As you know, in May, we had an arrest of an officer for over 30 pills of fentanyl. We can't confirm what the overdoses were from. We can only suspect at this time. We've done everything possible, from bringing dogs in to taking periodic checks of lockers, and of course we want everybody that's coming in. I'll go through a metal detector, go through a scanner. So we can only imagine. There's people become creative. This is not a St. Louis issue. This is a national issue. And I think with due diligence, we can curtail. I can't say we're going to eliminate it, but we can curtail most of it.
No, and I know the county jails equally had 6 or so people die. I mean, trust me, I'm not blaming either one of you. These are just, everybody keeps asking me questions. And it was one of those, well, I'll call them in and ask. I don't know the answers. I had suspected that the drugs could be coming in by like a liquid, like on a stamp that you lick. I can remember back, LSD, that was just on like stickers. You lick the sticker and it was pretty good. I'm going back to my hippie days, but so I know there's plenty of ways to get drugs in. So that I think was all the texts that I got. So we're saying we were not overcrowded. We're saying there was a disturbance going on at the time, is why they most likely said don't bring anybody over there at the minute. 6 people died, overdose, suicide, and natural causes. Ambulances were called in the cases, they did not necessarily die in the jail. They were properly, like you would if you were home. So an ambulance was called, they were picked up, brought to they weren't dead at the time they were picked up. They were brought to the hospital where they just couldn't be brought back. I think that covered everything. So if either one of you want to add, and otherwise we'll go down the committee from there. And I certainly appreciate all the answers.
I think the other thing that the commissioner has requested, and we're trying to do for the entry of drugs into the system, is get another body scanner that will be used not just for the detainees, but for employees coming through, our contractors. So, just one more step when we're trying to figure out the flow of, whatever is coming into the jail.
Do we open their mail? I mean, could they be coming in being mailed to them?
We do. Most of the mail is scanned. The only thing that comes in physically is legal mail.
Okay. And so, I mean, so it's scanned. I mean, so they can't put like powder or any kind of drug in with the envelope, I guess.
Correct.
We're not physically opening anything. We don't want to get it. Anybody, that fentanyl stuff's terrible. No one exposing. Well, anyway, I'm going to move on through the committee and thank you. And really just wanted to get all these things answered for everybody that's asking me. Let me go down the committees. Hopefully everybody's still here. Alderwoman Davis, you'd be first up. Alderman
I think
Davis.
she's gone,
Okay.
Alderman Pacora.
Okay, Alderman Howard, are you still with us?
I am.
next up.
I
You're
am.
next up.
Ms. Clemens Abdullah, how many prisoners do you currently have contained?
545.
How many?
545.
Okay. And how many are at the Justice Center?
545.
What is the Justice Center built to hold?
Currently, because our 4th floor is down, 658.
So 658 without the 4th floor?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I have another question. Were these, in the spaces where these prisoners are contained, are all the locks working?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any prisoners at the annex, or what is formerly known as the workhouse?
No, ma'am.
So we have male and female prisoners all housed at the Justice Center.
Yes.
How are the females segregated from the males, and is there segregation or not?
They're segregated by, we have a unit called post-admission housing. We have a female side, and you have to get through double doors to get there. And our overflow is held in some cells in the medical department. So we have the females segregated. And we do that so that our flow of, we don't impede upon the flow of incoming arrestees.
Okay. When incoming arrestees are detained, and where are they detained before they're given physical or, I assume that as they come in, they're given some examinations?
Yes.
See if there are any weapons or, okay. Where are they held until they can be examined and placed?
Actually, when they come into the 1st floor, they're examined medically right then, usually within an hour or so, because we have a nurse that's stationed there.
Okay. And so then they are directed to their assigned cell at that point?
No, ma'am, we have to wait until the process goes through of being issued upon or not. And if they are, then that's when they come to the 2nd floor to become possession of, or not possession, become an actual inmate inside CJC.
So how long are they held in that temporary area?
It depends. It depends on usually 1 to 3 days. It just depends on if it's a holiday, if it's a weekend, because you have 24 hours to be issued upon.
And what is the capacity of that area?
I think they can hold up to maybe 24.
And it's in one single area?
Yes.
And they could be there 1 to 3 days?
Yes.
That concerns me for safety, prisoner safety, that you may have up to 24. And I've been told that sometimes they're stacked in there and there's no room other than to stand. I have no way of verifying that, but that's what I've been told. That being true, I'm concerned for the safety of all the prisoners that may be held like that.
We collaborate with the PD on a continual basis to help with the overflow.
Okay, and by collaborate, what do you mean? Can you specify what that is?
When they call us and tell us that they have met their capacity or they've ran out of room, we make room in our post-admission housing area to move them so that they're not stacked in there, or it's where the safety and security of staff, or inmates are at stake.
No, because the complaint I got was the person, there was no room to even sit. They had to stand, you know, and that was the only way they could get along and shoulder to shoulder. So if that's true, I'm very concerned about that. As far as being able to stem the flow of drugs, and you've addressed that, but I guess the other consideration I have is for the safety of the COs. Have they been issued any stab vests or any other safety gear?
They have OC spray. We have not issued stab-proof vests. That takes on the historical. I would, as being a good steward of the city's money, I wouldn't invest in that, and I would say that because historically, stab-proof vests are not. We haven't had any stabbings that will best fit us, and I want to be a good steward of the city's money, and that would be a waste because if you invest in it, then you have to replace them every 3 to 5 years, and though they're not inexpensive, they're very expensive.
So what are we doing? What are you doing to ensure the safety of the correction officers?
We have a communication going on, and I say a communication. In corrections, the first thing that we have is to learn how to communicate in an effective way, confrontation and avoidance techniques. And so we're teaching a staff, and most of them know, oftentimes it's not really about the tools that you're armed with, but the manner in which you communicate. And so with that, we've seen staff communicate in a way that is productive, and it makes the inmates feel safe, it makes the staff feel safe. And it's really all about, not necessarily, because we already know the population is going to have a, when you're incarcerated, it becomes, have a mindset that you would normally have. So the staff are already armed with knowing that. So we've had annual training, we've armed them and talked to them about that, how they communicate with the people being housed here. And they did well in communicating back. And so instead of utilizing OC, I would like them to utilize their communication skills. And I think that's helped tremendously. Because, I went to the unit one time, and I'll give you an example. And I don't mean to take you down this rabbit hole, but I want to talk to you and tell you, he says, I asked the guy, I said, why are you sitting on that? And he says, I'm not giving it up. And I'm saying, why? He said, I can't see. Oh, well, why can't you see? Well, my glasses. Okay, well, let's help get you your glasses. So it's all about finding out what the problem is so we can curtail or, minimize it. And that's what we did. We helped them get glasses. So I think once the staff learn from me, I lead by example. I go and I talk to them. I see what's going on. The deputies go out, they talk to them. And I think once we all learn how to communicate in an effective way, and we're going to have some ones that we're bringing into the fold, but I think once we communicate effectively, it'll do 10 times better than a stab-proof vest, and it'll save the city a lot of money, and it has. We did well in that aspect.
Okay, how many corrections officers are you allocated?
Almost 200.
How many do you have?
Less than 100.
So you would say you're very understaffed.
Very.
So I would say that I'm just speculating, having been in a supervisory position, that your people are very stressed.
That is correct.
What do you think could be done to help this deficiency of staffing?
Increase in pay.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of the biggest things. Personnel has been helpful in helping us get an incentive pay, but the pay of correctional staff will help tremendously. And I say that because if I want you to communicate effectively, I need you to have better recruits. And people are more appreciative of their jobs when they pay. And not to compare with any other entity, but you come inside of this facility, you're in here 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Most of our staff stay 16 because they're needed. If we increase that pay, it would help us tremendously. It would help the staff have a better outlook, a positive view of the city. And it would just be better overall for us. The increase in pay by far is that. We're working on the parking for the staff. I think that's an incentive, but when it boils down to it, it's really what they take home.
Yeah, oh, and your COs come in for the night shift and they have to pay to park in the garage nearby. That's kind of pathetic. And what is the turnover rate? You know, is that high?
Well, let me say, in the last week, if we can get staff in the last, say 4 or 5 months, we got 6 in. We only have 1 from that group.
Mhm.
And so it will be helpful. We're doing some things to try to retain people. Some people have been here 20, 30 years and, you know, they need some things to keep them around.
Mhm. Well, and we need some fresh people that are willing to stay 20 years also, or 30 years.
And if I could get you guys assistance, it would be helpful. On a yearly basis, we like to, in corrections, we call it Correctional Workers Week. It usually happens around May. If you guys could do something and help fund a Correctional Worker of the Year, Correctional Officer of the Year, and Supervisor of the Year, and give us a set amount of 1,000 each, it'll give people to strive to do better, to set and be an example. This will be helpful for us, and it's always good in a correctional environment to set that. I did some things on my end as a commissioner, but I need your assistance to increase the pay and give them and recognize them every May.
Let me say this, the Board of Aldermen only approves those pay scales. We can suggest them, we can encourage them, but that's all up to the Division of Human Resources. And I would pose that, you know, in a city that we probably now have more money than we've ever had since I can remember, that we need to take care of our people here. And I'm saying that publicly. If we continue, if we want to continue to be a city that provides services to the taxpayers. So thank you very much for your time, Ms. Clemens Abdullah. You've been very insightful. Thank you.
Thank
you. Okay, moving down the list. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Ms. Abdul, I'm not gonna beat you up. I do that to Dan. That's a personal thing with me and him. Alderwoman Howard has pretty much asked the questions. The only concern that I have is, and if I'm off, please tell me, they are locked up 23 hours. And this is what I've heard. I'm not saying it's fact. They're locked up 23 hours. They have an hour that they can get out, but we don't have enough guards to get them out to have them walk or whatever. Is that accurate or am I off?
No, ma'am, it's not accurate. We do rotate. We do have a modified operation where they do come out in certain increments. So they do get out more than an hour.
Okay. And so in regards to the 2 overdoses, and you might have said, and I apologize, I didn't hear it. Do you feel that you all have a plan to, and I know in jail, that's been back in the 1800s, it's always been an issue with drugs. That's always been a thing. Everybody always say, how do they get the drugs into the jail? You know, so you talk to people in jail and they say you can get more drugs in jail than you can on the street. And so my question to you, because I feel this is your expertise, have you looked at the justice system as a whole to see how you all can kind of curtail that to, you know, to help us to avoid those issues to
Yes,
some
ma'am.
extent? Because I know you can't get it zero. That's unrealistic.
Yes, ma'am. And part of it is getting the body scanner that we talked about, getting that funded. I think we have some things that we put in place. It just takes us a minute. You know, they're probably a step or 2, and some would say 5, if you let the inmates tell it, that they're about 5 steps ahead of us. And actually, us compared to national scale, we're actually low. And I'm talking about the deaths or suggested or suspected overdoses. But I think we're ahead of things when it comes to detecting things. We're very proactive. And I know we've been quiet over the last year, but we're trying to do things to curtail that and ensure everybody's safety and security.
Okay. And so, how do you look at how to, I know money is an issue with all our departments, you know, from the police, fire, all of them. So have you looked at some kind of incentives that you want to have to kind of hold on to some of these guys or recruit newer guys beside pay?
That's what I was bringing up to you guys, doing correctional worker of the year, correctional officer of the year, supervisor of the year, granting them something every year to say, here's $1,000. I appreciate your work. Thanks for not calling in. Thanks for not taking excessive time off. Those are some of the things, giving them some additional parking. We're working on that. Those are some of the things that we have for the staff are creating as we speak. To make it a little bit more convenient for them. Besides the pay, I think ultimately the pay is the carrot that, you know, everybody will chase after. And I think eventually working with you guys and personnel and the budget offices, I think it'll all come together. It's just I just have to be a little bit more due diligence. I get, I put a little bit more effort out there because I know how it is to be an officer. I know how it is to not have the necessary things because I've been there. So I'm doing everything possible. So if you get a random email from me or and I need you guys support, please support me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alderwoman?
No, sir, thank you.
Alderman Brandon Bosley, are you still with us?
I am here. I'm trying to get my little Zoom together. My apologies.
Okay. I can hear you.
I am still here.
Okay, now we see you and hear you.
I know there's been a lot of different talks about the different things that are going on within the jail. I do believe, I don't know, well, I know a lot of people that are here in the board are deeply involved in the neighborhoods and the different identities that the different streets just 2 or 3 blocks over have. So, you know, with that, you know, I could not and would not blame some of the different occurrences that have happened within the jail on any one particular person. I think that comes down to a lot of different factors. You know, one of the issues and problems that we do have, I mean, this is being realistic. Just as divided as our city is. We got the Delmar divide, we got hoods divided the same way. There are individuals that are in the Justice Center that should never be there with other people that come from other parts of the city. You know, we create these violent situations and then wonder why those things are happening. You know, there is no one person or 2 or 10 or 15 people that you can put in place to prevent some of these things that happen in the streets, and then you put folks in the environment where they're looking at each other every single day under the same conditions of you know, it's not the conditions of the jail per se, but it's you know, it's more so about being encaged in general. You know, all of us, regardless whether you are white or black or what your religion is, if you put somebody or a human being inside of a place where, you know, they have to be there 24 hours, even if it's your house, you know, you're alone to get out, and being in there with individuals who you have friction with and have had friction with on the outside of those walls don't make it, you know, any better. Just during COVID, we saw a hell of an uptick in domestic assaults, and I'm not saying anything, want to be disrespectful or look any way like I'm insensitive about domestic abuse, but you know, those things go, you know, give you an insight, some sort of an idea of people being locked up in one place for such a long time that have differences. At some point in time, things erupt. And, I don't think it's within the city's best interest in, whether it's what jails we put them in to maximize our population within one jail and folks who, need to be housed for criminal offenses. I think we need to look at the city for what it is. It's very separated and has been segregated for a very long time. And to, kind of look at a one-stop shop for being a place where we should house, our individuals who have committed some sort of offense, I think has put us in some sort of a position where we get a glimpse into what the world is when you do put all these people who have these differences in one place. And I think that's no different from, you sending 100 Black people to, a place in rural areas where they have not been and unwanted, or 100 white people the same way. These folks and our people come from, once again, very segregated neighborhoods. Bloods, Crips, GDs, a lot of different factions within the city of St. Louis that were forcing into one place and saying, you got to do well. And then when these people act out, we're expecting them to be civilized. And I think that's just, it's not realistic in what it is that we are potentially asking for based on the circumstances that exist, and us looking for outcomes that potentially one exists based on the human nature of what it is that we're looking at changing. And these, once again, these are people that come from our neighborhood. So folks that are hurt each other, families that are hurt. And this, we have to look at potential ways to, really give those individuals who are involved in these systems, who listen to these things day in and day out, which is our commissioner, the tools that she needs. And she's asked for multiple things through emails that we have not been able to provide as a board nor as a city. And I'm not saying that it's our fault or her fault. This just comes down to a place where we can look at what it is that we have not been able to achieve within the city, and know that 4 or 5 years from now, things will be changed based on the information and the analytical data that we do have, to be able to make significant changes and say whether or not they work or don't work for the system that we are providing right now for those who are, housed within our criminal justice facilities. So, with that being said, I do appreciate the work that you have done. I know things are very, very difficult. I know we have not ever in the history of the city seen what it looks like to house all of our prisoners in one place. This is what it looks like. So we can't look at one person or 2 or 3 or 4, this administration or the administration prior to it as being the culprits to some of the things that we are seeing. What we need to do is make sure that we're taking the information that we are getting from those individuals who are on the front line every single day, writing those things down and ensuring that the emails that they provide for us when they are asking for resources are being taken seriously. And when we have the opportunity to provide monetary resources, to those causes, we can do those particular things and then look at whether or not they were able to do the things that they said that they'd be able to do with the resources that they said they needed to provide what it is that we need as far as services for the individuals, who are in the facilities that they're supposed to operate. I think, once again, we can continue to ask individuals to do the best that they can with lackluster services, lackluster materials, and that's just being real. We said it before, there are a lot of women, and this is not being disrespectful to women, who are our COs right now. And, they're not being even paid adequately, just like our police officers aren't being paid adequately right now. There are a lot of different factors in why jobs aren't being, or the different services within the city aren't being serviced, are being rendered in a way that we would say that they are stellar. But I wouldn't blame everything on, and I don't think we are, different commissioners and managers. I will say that we have to look at the individuals who are involved in these different bureaus, which are, these are folks who come from our communities. We know how they are. We know where they come from. So we know what they reach out for at the same time. So I think we need to give the jails and the COs, those individuals, what they ask for. Just as much we're advocating for police to have different benefits, having the tools that they need, adequate pay. Those same things are important for our CEOs and all these other individuals that we're looking at to render services for those people who we are looking at holding accountable. So that being said, once again, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to us to continue to have these conversations. This is budget time though. So those things that she asked for over a year or two ago, I say re-forward those emails, Commissioner, and make sure that everybody in public safety is adding on to them. So, this is the time where we add those things in and see what these things look like a year from now and make sure that, because some of us won't be here, some of us will, but at bare minimum, this is a time where we can look at those people who we have put in positions to be able to deal with these things that aren't voted on. We don't have to vote on you in a year. Folks do have to vote on us, but those things that you say you need and those different services, not services, those different tools that you need, I would say continue to send those things to us. And, those folks who believe in these are things that we need, is a time where we vote on those things. We got plenty of money to do things that we need to do to improve services. So, let's work on.
I think he finished. We lost him.
Yeah, you lost me. Was my camera, was my mute off for a while?
Yeah, no, you're good now.
Okay, thank you.
And Director Iceman and Commissioner, keep in mind, you have an open door here. Anytime you feel that you want a meeting, all you gotta do is just let us know. Certainly the door is open for meetings here. Alderman Oldenburg had to jump off. I know we're going to postpone his bills. Alderman Brett Narayan, you're up.
Basically, everything I wanted to ask has been covered at this point. Thank you, though, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And Alderman Hubbard is just off for the, and she called in. Alderman Page, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a few comments and maybe a couple of questions, but I promise I'll be brief. Commissioner, first and foremost, I would like to sincerely thank you for the last tour of the CJC, the guided tour that you provided. I think that shows a lot of progress in the facility, and I look forward to the next tour. I believe, if I remember correctly, we toured the 3rd floor last time that we were there. And I guess probably by the next one, it'll probably include the 4th floor. So thank you so much for that. On the issue of the deaths that have occurred, thank you, you and your staff, for doing everything you can to look out for the health and well-being of people entrusted in your care. And I hope that the body scanners and other tools will help you take even better care of the people in your charge. I do have a question about the workhouse, the CJC Annex, whatever you care to call it. Now that there are no detainees housed at the workhouse, what is the future of that facility? Is it still going to be used as a potential overflow or annex facility? Or should my question be directed toward the city facilities department at this point?
Alderman Page, we are using it as an overflow. We still have the 4th floor down. So yes, we are keeping it as an overflow option.
Okay, good deal. As a comment, one of the things that continues to concern me is allegations of overcrowding. I hear that, like I'm sure other committee members hear that, but then when you provide the numbers don't indicate any overcrowding. Any comments on that issue?
There is no overcrowding, sir.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you repeat that. And so I'll let that one go for the moment. one of the last things I have is that I believe it was around the time of our last visit at the CJC and reading newspaper articles as well, which I try to do with as much time as I have available. There was a female employee that was serving as a drug mule or distributor of drugs. I'm curious to know, has that case been thoroughly adjudicated at this point? And have you had any repeats of that activity?
I'm not sure of the status of her case. I know she's been charged. I'm not sure where it's at. Now, I can't tell you if we've had any other cases. Everything's still under investigation. We're trying to figure out the deaths and what have you and how things have occurred. So it takes a little bit more Monday morning quarterbacking. And so with it being under investigation, I would hold my comment until we finish doing what we need to do on our part.
Right. The reason I kind of brought that up, because I think there's a distinct possibility that especially the overdose deaths could be tied to various people, not just that particular CO, bringing materials into the CJC. Is my thinking on point or totally bonkers?
You're on point. You're definitely on point. Nobody is exempt. I'm looking at everybody.
Okay, I'll leave that there. And my last comment is anything at all I can do to give your COs more incentive to show up and show out at work. Anything that we can do for financial incentives, I'd be more than happy to do anything I can do because I'm sure, cash is not the ultimate motivator or incentive, but it goes a long way. Anything I can do to, I remember my very long 38-year corporate career. And, we did a lot of things to incentivize our teams, but financial rewards went a long way to help people know that they're appreciated, first of all, and to gain a higher level, that next level of attendance and performance. So anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Miss Alderman Page, I said something to Alderwoman Howard, and I failed my staff by not saying this earlier. And as you speak, I think about it. There's a little book that personnel creates, and they have a section for police and they have a section for fire. Well, I also think there needs to be a section for corrections, because there's nowhere in the city where you can go where people are working 24 hours a day and confined to a building. And they should be considered law enforcement, just like the statute says for Missouri, and therefore being on a different scale, having better, lower healthcare benefits, just like the PD and the fire. I think those are some of the things too that could help not only the current folk, but that work here, current employees, but attract new people that want better benefits or want benefits. And I think that in itself, if you guys could look at that as a whole, in addition to recognizing our stellar employees yearly with the correctional officer of the year, correctional worker of the year, supervisor of the year, I think those, along with letting us be considered, allowing us under the statute of, like the Missouri statute says, let us be law enforcement and give us those benefits, health insurance and all those things that would lower their costs, that would attract better people. It'll make the people that are even thinking about leaving stay and make it a career option instead of staying a couple of years and then going on to other agencies. I think that in itself would, if you guys could support something like that, it could help our people, help our staff feel more appreciative by you guys. And I know they have the support, but when you do things like that, that can work hand in hand with personnel I think it'll help give them really a show of appreciation.
Thank you, Commissioner. I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm happy that I was able to help you bring those points out.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, I yield.
Okay, so I got 3 last quick questions, I promise, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Just because people are texting me. One is, how many deaths, do you have an idea how many deaths were last year? So if we got 6 this year, how many were last year? How's this compare?
I came in September, and from September to December, we didn't have any that I can recall.
Okay. I don't know the answer to the question. Dr. Isom, do you know how many were last year deaths in the jail?
I'm not sure, Chairman Picaro, but we can find out. I don't recall it being, of course, this many last year.
So there's more. The other question was, you talked about the disturbance that went on, why they didn't bring people over. Is that happening? How often is the staff having to deal with disturbances over there? Is that a pretty, like, does this happen weekly or bi-weekly or anything? Is it happening pretty often?
No, it's not. It was actually pretty rare. That was probably the first, and let me say this, in the last 6 months, the first.
Okay. And the other thing is just to clear up, literally nobody's being held on misdemeanors, right? There's no grass cutting, anybody like that. Out of the 545 people, are they all being held on felony, or are there some people held on misdemeanor?
Very few are held on misdemeanor. I think they're all here on felony.
So, okay, those were all the questions. And I know this has been a long day, 2 hours. And keep in mind that the door is always open, Dr. Isom and Commissioner Abdullah. At any time you feel that, you know, something you want to bring up something publicly in public safety, the door is open. So it's just, all you have to do is call. We meet every Wednesday.
Alderman Bacaro, Alderwoman Grassi has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't really gonna, but we can go off the committee. If this, let me go down. So if the people that are aldermen that are not on the committee, if you want to turn your picture on so I can see your hands. The only one I do see is Alderman Gracia. Do I see anyone else? No. So go ahead, Alderwoman.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak briefly. Thanks to you, Commissioner and Director Isom, for being on today. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that I think most of us believe that many city employees need raises, and the Board of Aldermen can be supportive in that effort. But the conversations really need to start with Commissioner, you having those conversations with Director Isom to encourage the mayor to put that in her budget. A lot of people don't know that the Board of Aldermen can only cut, we cannot add. And so a lot of times, once we get the budget before us, we cannot be helpful. So if we can be helpful prior to that time, I think those conversations typically start in about January. Please keep us posted on how we can be supportive. And I did want to reiterate, just I've appreciated you allowing me access to constituents of mine who are interested in meeting with me when they've been detained. And I do know that drugs being available in the jail and then them not having access to medications has been something that's come up over and over again, not just currently, but in the past 9 years I've been at the board. And then I just have one quick question. You mentioned earlier when you were discussing suicides, you said that you can't account for people who do self-harm in jail. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
Meaning, oftentimes when people feel a certain way, they keep it to themselves. And I say that, let me tell you, we've had 20, 30 people on our mental health roster. And when they have outbursts, act out, do certain things, I recommend them to go to mental health or to mental health go to them and do an evaluation within 24 hours. Oftentimes it happens within 4. And so a lot of people like to keep that to themselves. So it goes undetected to us. But we do everything possible from their entrance into the jail. We interview them then we do it within 14 days. And then if certain things start to occur, I hear their name. Oftentimes, the first time I hear their name, I recommend them to mental health. So we've had over a 50% increase in the last several months because I feel like oftentimes people want to downplay certain things and I don't. And I want people to be forthcoming. So I said, you know, they keep it to themselves because they feel shameful. I don't want them to feel shameful. I want them to know that we want to help. We want to work with the division, the violence of reentry to help them get back into and be our neighbor and be a neighbor that is well mentally. So we do a lot of things because we don't know. They won't tell us. And, you know, men are prideful. That's just the gender. That's just the makeup of how men are majority. Because the women, we talk to them openly. Women usually communicate a lot more about their mental health and men don't. So we did put in some mechanisms to try to help people at every aspect. But guys they keep it to themselves.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I guess to the extent possible that you're able to protect people, even if you're not aware that they're suffering from depression or other issues that might, you know, incline them to harm themselves, that those things get into place too.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. No further questions.
Anytime.
That was quick.
Can I ask just one question?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, please.
Commissioner, do we not allow the pastors to come in? Because I know we did have the clergy coming in. Are they allowed to come in to the Justice Center?
Yes, ma'am. We just have a process in place. But we have some already approved.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know because somebody told me that and I'm like, no, let me ask because I don't like passing out bad rumors. So, okay, I'll make sure that pastor understands this is a process and they need to contact you all to go through the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. Chairman Vaccaro, could I just add
Yeah, oh,
something?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to recognize that Alderwoman Agrassi is right in her characterization of the pay. But, you know, what I will say is, you know, this is something that the commissioner and I talk about on a regular basis in terms of trying to figure out how we can give people more money and more incentives. But you know, it's a process of talking to the unions and talking to personnel division. But we have really recommended a lot of different things that we think could immediately increase pay. And I think some of those are in the work. They may not be working as fast as the commissioner and I want. But you know, it's something that we work on almost every week, trying to figure out how we can get more pay incentives to employees.
Would it help if we do a resolution to you all in regards to that, like we're looking for the police?
Yeah, I think Alderwoman Boyd, where the hangup is that, you know, it's this hangup between negotiating with the unions and either unilaterally increasing pay or waiting till we have an agreement with the unions. And, you know, that's a process that the union and DOP, I mean, Department of Personnel are working through. So we can give recommendations and suggestions, but ultimately it's an agreement between the unions and personnel. And so we kind of just wait until that agreement is done.
Okay. All right. I mean, I was, as Commissioner Abdul said, you know, anything we can do. I was just trying to think of something that maybe we could lend to that to kind of support it.
No, it wouldn't hurt. I mean,
okay. Because you're right, it is citywide. It's not just one department. It's citywide that our employees, I'm not going to start on that soapbox. I don't want Dan to get sweaty. So I'm just moving on. So it's across the board, Commissioner. So trust me, you all aren't the exception to the rule.
Thank you guys for your support, though.
Mr. Chair, and I think I might add that if we don't get one phone call a week, 2 phone calls a week about the pay in all levels of employment in this city, I would be amazed. It needs to be addressed better than, you know, a $2,000 bonus here and there. So people need to know that they have a future with our city. So, okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, anyone on or off the committee? If you turn your picture on, show your hand. If not, I want to thank the commissioner and Dr. Isom for your time today. I know you're both busy, and I appreciate the little over 2 hours that you spent with us today. We're here every Wednesday about 1 o'clock, same time, same channel. No, Pam says no. I think we are though. The public safety meeting, that's when we come on. Anyway, anytime you all want to be, you know, just let us know. And certainly if you have issues you want to bring on that we're not aware of, please, you know, and I think we accomplished a lot today, whether it was the RFP or getting some understandings on what's going on. And hopefully we can get the citizens oversight committee, you know, to be able to go in there. So having said all that, if anybody wants to make an emotion that we adjourn, I certainly will accept that.
Make
So
a
moved.
motion, we adjourn the public safety meeting.
And we have a second with.
Second,
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, I'm sure. Anyway, God bless you all. Have a safe week, and thank you for coming.